So we all know and love our fixed AK stocks. They're solid, they're sturdy, they get the job done, but sometimes they leave a little bit left to be desired. If you have an AK that's got a tang and a fixed stock, you aren't really able to fold it, there's not any significant adjustments for cheek welds that you can make, and you can't really change the length of pull. So that's why today we're going to do an unboxing, installation, and overview of the Midwest Industries AK Picatinny rail plate adapter. This model specifically is tang compatible, so we're not going to have to chop off our tang with the Dremel or any sort of other tooling. So we're going to go ahead, take you to the workbench, install this bad boy on the RPK here, and I'll meet you back in the studio to talk about my impressions afterwards. Enjoy the ride, folks. Alrighty, so let's go ahead and take this out of the box here. So this is, again, the Midwest Industries Picatinny end plate adapter for the AK. Let's pop this bad boy open. Okay, so we got the adapter here. We got some Loctite and some screws that I'm sure we're going to use for the install, and a couple of Allen wrenches. Go ahead and get these screws out of the little baggie here. A little bit of red Loctite for this one too. So the first thing we're going to do is just going to be to go ahead and remove our traditional AK stock. On the RPK, I am running the clubfoot stock here, so we'll go ahead and take that off. Again, we do have a clear weapon system, so I'm hoping this should come off pretty easily here. It's literally just this screw that the tang screws into the stock, so we'll go ahead and untighten that. Oh man, that's a rusty screw. Okay, so after we have that first tang screw out, we're actually gonna have to field strip the gun because there's another screw we gotta get to. So we'll go ahead and field strip the AK. So after we field strip, you can see there's another screw right here that we gotta take out. So we'll go ahead and remove that. So now our traditional stock should just kind of pop right out. Sometimes they may be a little bit stubborn, so go ahead and grab a rubber mallet and maybe just give her some light taps. And that should wiggle right out for us. Come on, baby. All right, there we go, beautiful. So now that we've got our traditional fixed stock off of the gun, there's one more thing we have to do before we install the adapter, and that's gonna be to remove the pistol grip and the T-nut from inside the gun. That's because this is actually gonna kind of bang up against that T-nut for the install, and it's gonna be a pain in the butt. So go ahead and just unscrew this pistol grip, get that out of the way for us. All right, so we'll go ahead and set that pistol grip and that T-nut aside here. All right, next, the moment we've all been waiting for, the install of the adapter. This is just gonna sit inside the back of the receiver like this, okay? Out of the box, you may or may not need to modify this adapter. Through the magic of YouTube off screen, I took a metal file and shaved down a little bit of material on each side so that it actually fits in the receiver of the RPK. You may or may not need to do that with your AK, but you know, classic AK stuff, grab that metal file, get after it, check and see if it fits. So once we've assured fitment, we're gonna go ahead and place this in the back of the receiver here. And again, this one is pretty tight, so I'm gonna have to bang it in with a rubber mallet. So we're gonna go ahead and set that in there and just give it a couple of taps here, real gentle. So as we can see, that's fitting in there nicely. So we're gonna go ahead and tap this in right about to where this square insert sits so that we could fit these screw pieces in the side. I'm gonna go ahead and just finish tapping that in. Okay, so once we got that hammered in just enough where that outline box is still present, we're gonna go ahead and drop in these pins. So what these little plugs are for is obviously not the case with this because the RPK is super tight with this adapter. But if this was super loose, what you could do is you screw these in righty-tighty. And what that actually does is it beefs up the width on each side of the adapter so it's snug in your gun. And there's gonna be one on both the right and left side of the weapon. I'm just gonna go ahead and put these in there and keep everything together so I don't lose them. But honestly, in this build, I probably don't need these in here. So we'll kind of have to hold both of those pieces in and then continue to tap this in. So once we got this piece banged in all the way, we'll kind of flip her right side up here, and we'll go ahead and install this screw into this adapter here. I know this did come with red Loctite, but to be incredibly honest, I had to force this thing in here pretty hard. So I don't really think I'm gonna need any red Loctite, so I'm not gonna use it, but do as you're told if you wanna be a good boy. And we do need to make sure that this screw goes all the way down flush because you will need to set the recoil spring assembly back in this groove. So just make sure you're torquing that down all the way. So once that little screw's screwed in all the way, we'll go ahead and put our pistol grip back on, T-block back in, we'll go ahead and screw on our pistol grip. All right, so we got our pistol grip screwed back on. I'm gonna go ahead and slop the AK back together right now because I do wanna make sure that that recoil spring assembly is able to sit flush here. So let's just make sure that that's the case before we move forward. All right, great, that sits back on there good. Dust cover. Bam! All right. So that is all there is to it, ladies and gentlemen, for that install. The install really wasn't too bad. The longest part just was a little bit of that fitment, shaving this piece down a little bit to slam her in the AK here. And honestly, that's probably a little bit of an RPK problem. I have noticed whenever I'm fitting parts for this gun, it usually does require a little bit more fitment than a traditional AK amp, but that's okay. We were still able to do it at home. I'm not a gunsmith, and I was able to do this just fine here out on the table. Just for fun, we're gonna go ahead and throw on just this JMac Customs triangle folder that I have sitting around. and then we'll take it back to the studio and do a little overview. All right, so we just got done installing the Midwest Industries 1913 adapter for our AKM patterns, and again, this one did include leaving that tang in place. I really do appreciate that they had an option to leave that tang, not because I'm afraid of cutting it off, but I just like the ability to go back to the fixed stock if and when I kind of get bored with this setup. So the install of this rail really wasn't too bad. I did have to do a little bit of fitting on the AKM, shaving some parts of that adapter so I could slam her home. But at this point, I mean, it's in there pretty rock solid. I was shaking this around quite a bit and trying to yank on it, pull it, and obviously it's pushed in there with some pressure as well as the screw, so it's in there pretty stable and solid. Right now, I am just kind of running a JMac triangle folder hanging out on the back of this guy just because I had her laying around. One thing to note about the Tang compatible version is that depending on what kind of folding adapter you're using, you may actually not be able to fold it. So for this JMac adapter, I actually need to push it up and over, and I wasn't quite able to do that because that tang is still in place. So just kind of something to take note of. I'm sure I could flip this adapter or use a different adapter style and not have an issue. So not really a huge deal. I mean, overall, I think the product is pretty awesome just because when you have that fixed stock trunnion, you're kind of like limited in your stock options. And if we're wanting kind of a more like adaptable and mission configurable weapon system, it's nice to have that 1913 rail so we can switch out some parts and pieces as needed. So as you guys see, I did kind of make a couple of other changes to the RPK, so stay tuned on a further video for an in-depth breakdown of kind of my Midwest parts kits pimp out of the RPK. And like I said, I'm not sure I'm quite loving the JMac stock on this one, so stay tuned for another video. Maybe we'll do some different stock unboxing. Wink, wink, nudge, nudge. All right, guys, thank you for watching this video today. We appreciate it. I hope you have a nice, smooth install of your Midwest Industries 1913 rail, and I will see you at the next Muzzlebrook video. Please subscribe to the channel. I really do appreciate you.